I trusted them both. Then I saw them together. Her laugh, his smirk, my world shattered in a single glance. My name's Smith, 36. I'm a mechanic, hands always stained with grease. My wife and best friend betrayed me, tore my life apart. I used to think loyalty was all that mattered. Now I know, betrayal demands a price. The garage smelled of oil and metal, a scent that clung to me like a second skin. 12-hour shifts at the shop left my hands rough, my back sore, but I liked the work. It was honest. I'd come home to Sarah, her dark hair tied back, stirring soup or scrolling her phone at the kitchen table. "Long day, Smith?" she'd ask, her voice soft but distracted. I'd nod, too tired to notice the way her eyes didn't meet mine. Mike was my constant, the guy who'd been there since high school. We'd rebuilt his old Chevy together, laughed over dumb bets, like who could chug a beer faster. He'd show up at the house with a six-pack, sprawl on the couch, and talk about his sales job. "You're the real man, Smith," he'd say, clapping my shoulder. "Fixing things. Me? I just talk for a living." His grin was wide, disarming. I believed every word. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Sarah and I had been married 7 years. No kids yet, though we talked about it sometimes. She worked part-time at a boutique, liked to sketch dresses in her notebook. I'd find her doodles on the counter, delicate lines I couldn't draw if I tried. I thought we were happy. I thought Mike was family. But then the late nights started. Sarah would say, "Book club ran long," or "I grabbed coffee with a friend." Her phone buzzed more than it used to, and she'd tilt the screen away, just enough to make my stomach twist. I didn't ask questions. Asking felt like accusing, and I wasn't that guy. Trust was my rule. Sarah was my wife. Mike was my brother in all but blood. Doubt was a crack I refused to see. One night, I got off early. The shop was slow, and the boss sent me home. I texted Sarah, said I'd grab takeout. No reply. I figured she was busy, maybe sketching or out with friends. I drove by the bar we liked, thought I'd surprise her if she was there. The neon sign glowed red, casting shadows on a lot. I parked, my boots crunching gravel, and walked toward the door. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and laughter. I scanned the crowd, expecting to see Sarah with her book club friends, maybe sipping wine. Instead, I saw her in a corner booth, her hand on Mike's arm. His head was close, too close, his smirk sharper than I'd ever noticed. Her laugh hit me like a punch. My chest tightened, breath shallow, like I'd been underwater too long. I stood there, frozen, my keys digging into my palm. I didn't walk over, didn't yell. I turned and left, the door slamming behind me. Back in my truck, I gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened. The takeout bag sat cold on the seat. I drove home, the street lights blurring. Their faces burned in my mind, her hand, his smirk. I pulled into the driveway, stared at our house. The porch light was off. Inside, I sat in the dark, the wedding photo on the mantel staring back. Sarah's smile, my arm around her. Mike had been there that day, toasting us. My jaw clenched, a slow burn spreading through me. Something had to give. But what? The photo felt like a lie now. What else had I missed? The bar's neon buzzed in my ears as I stood in the doorway, the air heavy with beer and cigarette smoke. My boots felt glued to the floor, my eyes locked on the corner booth. Sarah leaned toward Mike, her fingers brushing his arm, her laugh sharp and bright, the kind she used to save for me. Mike's smirk was lazy, confident, like he owned the moment. Owned her. My pulse hammered in my throat, a dull roar drowning out the jukebox. I clenched my fists, keys biting into my palm, the pain grounding me just enough to keep from storming over. I'd come to surprise her. Takeout bag still warm in my truck. Early shift, rare luck. I'd pictured her smile when I walked in with her favorite tie. Instead, I got this, my wife and my best friend, tangled in a moment that wasn't mine. My chest burned, like someone had poured gasoline on my ribs and struck a match. I wanted to yell, to flip their table, to make them feel the weight of my stare. But my legs wouldn't move. My voice stayed locked in my throat. Sarah tilted her head, her hair catching the dim light. Mike leaned closer, his hand grazing her wrist. It wasn't innocent. You don't touch someone like that by accident. My stomach churned, all rising. I thought of every late night she'd blamed on book club. Every time I clapped my shoulder and called me brother. The lies stacked up in my head, each one a brick in a wall, I hadn't seen being built. I turned, shoving the door open, the cold night air hitting my face like a slap. The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked to my truck, my hands shaking so bad I dropped the keys, trying to unlock the door. I slid into the driver's seat, the takeout bag mocking me from the passenger side. My knuckles whitened on the wheel, my breath ragged. I didn't cry. I don't cry. But my eyes stung, and my jaw ached from clenching it so hard. The drive home was a blur. Streetlights streaked past, their glow smearing like my thoughts. I kept seeing her hand, his smirk, the way they didn't even notice me standing there. I pulled into the driveway, the house dark except for a faint glow from the kitchen. Sarah wasn't home. Of course she wasn't. I sat there, engine off, the silence louder than the bar had been. Inside, I dropped the takeout on the counter and sank into a chair. The wedding photo on the mantel stared at me. Sarah in her white dress, me grinning like an idiot, Mike raising a glass at the reception. My hands trembled as I picked it up, my thumb tracing the frame. I wanted to smash it, watch the glass splinter like my trust. Instead, I set it down, careful like it might cut me. I poured a whiskey, the burn in my throat matching the one in my chest. My phone sat silent. No texts, no apologies, no lies to cover their tracks. They didn't know I'd seen them. That thought twisted in my gut, sharp and cold. I could confront them, demand answers, watch them squirm. But something heavier settled in me, a quiet rage taking root. I wasn't ready to speak. Not yet. I stared at the photo, their smiles mocking me. What kind of man lets this go unanswered? The days after the bar were a haze, like driving through fog with no headlights. I went to work, turned wrenches, nodded at customers, but inside, I was unraveling. Sarah came home each night, her smile thin, her excuses thinner. Book club, she'd say, her phone buzzing in her pocket. Might drop by once, all easy laughs, and how's it hanging, Smith? His eyes didn't meet mine, and I noticed. My hands twitched, wanting to grab him, shake the truth out. But I stayed quiet, my jaw tight, my silence a shield in a cage. Nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed, Sarah's breathing soft beside me, and stare at the ceiling. My heart would race, replaying that bar scene, her hand on his arm, his smirk, my fists clenched under the sheets, nails digging into my palms. Sleep stopped coming. Dark circles bloomed under my eyes, and I'd catch my reflection in the shop's polished tools, barely recognizing the hollowed-out man staring back. I wasn't eating much either. The kitchen table sat empty, Sarah's sketches scattered where dinners used to be. I started watching them closer. Sarah's phone stayed glued to her hand, her thumb quick to lock the screen when I walked by. Mike's visits were less frequent, but when he came, he'd linger too long, his jokes too loud, like he was trying to fill the space between us. I noticed the way Sarah's shoulders relaxed around him, the way she'd touch her hair. Small things, but they cut deep, each one a confirmation of what I'd seen. My stomach churned, but I didn't confront them. Not yet. Confronting meant admitting it was real, and I wasn't ready for that weight. At the garage, I kept my head down, but the guys noticed something was off. "You look like hell, Smith," my coworker Ray said one afternoon, tossing a rag my way. He was a big guy, all tattoos and gruff advice. "Wife trouble." I shrugged, wiping grease from my hands, but he leaned in, voice low. "If someone's screwing you over, you don't just take it. You hit back quiet-like. Make him regret it." His words landed hard, like a spark on dry grass. I didn't answer, but they stuck, burrowing deep. That night, I started digging. Sarah left her laptop open on the counter, a rare slip. I waited until she was in the shower, the hum of water masking my steps. My hand shook as I scrolled through her emails, my breath shallow. There they were, messages to Mike, short but damning. "Miss you already," she wrote. "Can't wait for tomorrow." My throat tightened, a mix of rage and nausea. I found a receipt in her purse later, tucked in a side pocket. Dinner for two at a place we never went. The date matched one of our book club nights. I sat in the dark. The receipt crumpled in my fist. Ray's words echoed. "Make him regret it." My silence wasn't just pain anymore. It was a plan forming, slow and deliberate. I didn't know how yet, but I'd find their weak spots. I'd make them pay. The receipt burned in my hand. What else were they hiding? The garage was my sanctuary, the clank of tools a rhythm, I could control. But every night, my mind churned, replaying Sarah's emails, that crumpled receipt, Mike's smug grin. My hands, once steady, now trembled when I wasn't working. The betrayal wasn't just a wound. It was a map, and I was learning to follow it. I stopped pacing the house, stopped staring at that damn wedding photo. Instead, I moved with purpose, my anger no longer a storm but a honed edge, sharp and ready. I started small, careful. Sarah's laptop was my first target. She'd gotten sloppy, leaving it open while she slept, the screen glowing faintly in our dark kitchen. My heart pounded as I sat down, the chair creaking under me. Her password was still the same, our anniversary. The irony stung. I scrolled through her messages, my breath shallow, sweat beading on my neck. The emails to Mike were short but bold. Meet me at 7. Loved last night. Each one twisted the knife deeper, but I didn't flinch. I screenshot everything, saving them to a hidden folder on my phone. My hands were steady now, my guilt drowned out by purpose. Next, I went through her purse again, finding more receipts, hotels, coffee shops, a bar across town. Each slip of paper was a piece of their secret world, one they thought I'd never see. I kept them in a locked toolbox at the garage, tucked under a pile of old rags. Sarah didn't notice, too busy texting Mike while pretending to sketch. I watched her from the corner of my eye, her quick smiles at her phone, and my jaw clenched so hard it ached. Mike was trickier. He worked in sales, always on the move, but we shared a few mutual contacts at his company. I'd fixed a coworker's car once, a guy named Dave who owed me a favor. Over beers, I nudged the conversation toward Mike, casual, like I was just catching up. He's killing it, huh? I said, forcing a grin. Dave's eyes flicked away, his voice low. Yeah, but he's been cutting corners. Shady deals, fudging numbers. Boss doesn't know yet. My pulse quickened, but I kept my face blank, nodding like it was no big deal. Inside, my mind raced. This was it. A crack in Mike's perfect life. Back home, I dug deeper. Mike's company had an online portal for expense reports, and I knew his login habits from years of him griping about it. Late one night, I tried a few password guesses, his dog's name, his birthday. Third try was in. My stomach churned as I scrolled through his submissions. Inflated receipts, double-billed trips, client names that didn't add up. He was stealing, small but consistent, thinking no one would notice. I printed the worst of it, my hands shaking with a mix of dread and thrill. I sat in my truck after, the papers stuffed in my glove box. Part of me wanted to stop, to confront them and be done. But Ray's word from the garage echoed. Make him regret it. I wasn't just a betrayed husband anymore. I was a man with leverage, and I'd use it. Mike's lies were my weapon now, and I was ready to aim. The papers burned a hole in my glove box. How long could I keep this quiet? The garage felt different now, less like a refuge and more like a war room. My toolbox held more than wrenches. It hid receipts, screenshots, and those damning printouts of Mike's fudged expense reports. Every night, I'd check my stash, my fingers brushing the papers like they were live wires. I'd spent weeks building this case, moving in silence, but silence wasn't enough anymore. I needed to act. My heart pounded at the thought, a mix of fear and fire. This was no longer about pain. It was about power. I typed the email late at night, the garage's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Check Mike's expense reports. I wrote, anonymous, no trace back to me. I attached the worst of his submissions, fake client dinners, inflated travel costs, all sloppy enough to raise flags. My hands hovered over the keyboard, sweat beading on my forehead. Sending it felt like pulling a trigger. I clicked, and the message vanished into the void. My chest tightened, not with guilt, but with something sharper, anticipation. The next day, Mike was different. He showed up at the house, his usual swagger gone. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot. Rough week, he muttered, grabbing a beer from my fridge like he still belonged here. Sarah hovered nearby, her smile forced, her fingers twisting a dish towel. Everything okay? She asked him, her voice too soft, too careful. My stomach churned, but I leaned against the counter, casual, my face a mask. Yeah, Mike, you look like hell. I said, my tone light but my eyes cold. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. Just wear crap, he said. I nodded, my pulse steady. He had no idea I'd lit the fuse. By the end of the week, whispers reached me through Dave at the garage. Mike's boss had launched an internal audit. Mike was called into meetings, his desk searched. I saw him at a gas station a few days later, his jaw tight, phone pressed to his ear. I don't know how they found out. He snapped to someone, probably Sarah. I filled my tank, my back to him, a faint smirk tugging at my lips. For the first time in weeks, I felt solid, like the ground wasn't slipping under me. But Sarah was starting to crack. She was quieter at home, her eyes darting to her phone more often. One night, she left it on the table while she showered. I didn't touch it, didn't need to. I already had enough. But then it buzzed, a text lighting up the screen. We need to talk. Now, for Mike. My throat tightened, a flicker of doubt cutting through my resolve. Did they suspect me? I stood there, the showers hum in the background, my hands clenching. I didn't answer the text, didn't confront her. Instead, I poured a whiskey and sat in the dark, the glass cold against my palm. Mike's career was unraveling, and Sarah's world was tilting with it. I'd struck the first blow, and it felt good. Too good. But that text gnawed at me. They were scared, cornered. Cornered animals bite. I had to stay sharp, stay ahead. My plan was working, but it was only the beginning. Her phone buzzed again, unanswered. What were they planning now? The air in our house felt heavier now, like a storm was brewing just out of sight. Sarah's smiles were gone, replaced by quick glances and tight lips. Mike hadn't come by in days, his absence loud in the quiet evenings. My anonymous tip had done its work. His company was digging deeper, his reputation fraying like cheap rope. But I wasn't done. I'd learned their weaknesses, and now I was weaving a trap, one they'd never see coming. My hands, once shaky, moved with purpose, my rage a steady pulse guiding every step. I started with their social circle. Sarah and Mike ran with the same crowd. Our crowd, people we'd known for years. Dinners, barbecues, game nights. I knew where to press. At a neighbor's cookout, I dropped a hint to Lisa, Mike's fiancée, while passing her a beer. Sarah's been out a lot lately. I said, casual, my voice low. Mike's been keeping her company. Huh. Her eyes narrowed, just for a second, but I saw the doubt take root. I didn't push, just let it sit. Later, I mentioned to another friend, Jen, how Sarah seemed off, how she and Mike were always texting. Small seeds, scattered carefully, but they grew fast. Within days, the whispers started. I'd catch snippets at the garage, gossip from mutual friends, questions about Sarah's new vibe. Her phone buzzed less now, her social media posts sparse. She'd come home from outings, her face drawn, and I'd watch her from the couch, my expression blank, but my pulse quick. Rough day. I'd ask, my tone neutral. She'd nod, muttering about work, but I saw the strain in her eyes. Her world was shrinking, and she didn't know why. Mike was worse off. Dave told me the audit was closing in, missing receipts, fake clients, thousands unaccounted for. His job was a tightrope now, one wrong step from a fall. I saw him at a coffee shop, his tie crooked, arguing on his phone. He didn't notice me in the corner, nursing a black coffee, my cap pulled low. His voice was sharp, desperate. I can fix this, he said. I smirked into my cup. He couldn't. Then Sarah confronted me. It was late, the kitchen dim, dishes piled in the sink. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her eyes like knives. What are you doing, Smith? She asked, her voice low, trembling. People are talking. About me. About Mike. My heart kicked, but I leaned back in my chair, slow, deliberate. Talking about what? I said, my voice flat, meeting her stare. She faltered, her hands twisting. You know something, she said. I shrugged, my face a mask, but inside my blood sang. She suspected, but she had no proof. Not yet. I stood, brushing past her to grab a glass of water, my shoulder grazing hers. She flinched, just enough to notice. Careful what you assume, Sarah, I said, my voice soft but heavy. She didn't answer, just watched me, her breath uneven. I walked away, my step steady, but my mind raced. The web was tightening, their lies unraveling. I was in control now, and it felt like standing on solid ground after months of sinking. But I had to keep moving, keep pulling the strings. Her eyes burned into my back. How much did she really know? The air in my truck was thick with the smell of oil and old coffee, but my hands were steady on the wheel. I'd spent weeks weaving my plan, each move deliberate, each doubt crushed under the weight of their betrayal. Sarah's suspicion had grown, her eyes sharp whenever I was near, but she had no proof. Mike was crumbling, his job hanging by a thread, his charm buried under audit reports. It was time to end it. I wasn't just a mechanic anymore. I was the one holding the hammer, ready to bring it down. I chose Lisa, Mike's fiancée, as my final move. She deserved the truth, and I knew it would unravel everything. I met her at a diner across town, a quiet place with chipped mugs and flickering lights. My palms were slick as I slid into the booth, the folder of evidence, texts, receipts, emails, tucked under my jacket. "Lisa," I said, my voice low, "there's something you need to know." Her eyes, bright and trusting, darkened as I laid out. Sarah and Mike, their late nights, the bar, the lies. I showed her the screenshots, watched her hands tremble as she read. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. Her jaw tightened, tears welling but not falling. She nodded, stood, and left without a word. My chest ached, but the match was lit. The fallout was fast. Lisa confronted Mike that night. I heard it through Dave, who heard it from a coworker. Screaming, accusations, Mike's desperate denials. By morning, Lisa had called off the engagement, her ring left on his desk. The audit at Mike's company tightened, and the evidence I'd sent sealed his fate. He was fired by noon, his shady deals exposed, his reputation in ashes. I saw him at the gas station a day later, his face gaunt, his car packed with boxes. He didn't see me, didn't know I'd been the one to pull the pin. My pulse thrummed, a mix of victory and something heavier. Sarah felt it too. Her friends had turned, the whispers I planted now a chorus. She came home late, her face pale, eyes red. "Everyone's talking," she said, her voice breaking as she stood in the kitchen. "They think I'm a liar." I leaned against the counter, my arms crossed, my heart of stone. "Maybe they're right," I said, my voice calm but sharp. Her eyes widened, searching mine, but I held her gaze, unyielding. "Smith, what did you do?" she whispered. I stepped closer, my breath steady. "I saw you. With Mike. At the bar." Her face crumpled, her hands shaking. "It's not what you think," she started, but I cut her off. "It's exactly what I think." I walked out, leaving her standing there, her world in pieces. Their love, their lies, had turned to ash. I drove to the garage, the night air cold through the open window. My hands gripped the wheel, not with anger now, but with release. I'd torn them apart, not with fists but with truth, and it felt right. But as the adrenaline faded, a hollow ache settled in. I'd won, but at what cost? Their love was dead, but was I whole again? The house was too quiet now, the kind of silence that presses against your skin. Sarah was gone, her sketches cleared from the counter, her side of the closet empty. She'd moved out a week after our confrontation. No fight, no tears, just a suitcase and a note. "I'm sorry." I crumpled it, tossed in the trash. Mike was a ghost too, his name poison in our old circle. Word spread fast. He'd lost his job, his fiancée, his charm. Friends stopped calling him, and last I heard, he was crashing on a cousin's couch across town. Their love, once a blade in my chest, was nothing now, just ash scattered by my hands. I went back to the garage, the one place that still made sense. The clank of tools, the smell of oil, they grounded me. I was working on a '67 Mustang, its engine a mess of rusted parts and bad wiring. My hands moved slow, deliberate, as I rebuilt what was broken. It felt right, fixing something tangible while my own life stayed cracked. My shoulders were lighter, the weight of their betrayal gone, but something else lingered, a hollow ache, like a bruise you only feel when you press it. I'd won. Mike's career was dead, his shady deals exposed for good. Sarah's reputation was shredded. Her friends, our friends, had turned their backs. I'd heard she was working odd jobs, her boutique gig gone after too many whispers. I'd done that. I'd taken their lies and turned them into a curse, one that burned their world down. But sitting in the garage, my hands black with grease, I wondered what I'd built in its place. The thrill of revenge had faded, leaving questions I didn't want to answer. Was this justice? Or just pain dressed up as victory? Ray, my coworker, clapped my shoulder one day, his grin wide. "Heard about Mike," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Guy got what was coming." "You good, Smith?" I nodded, my jaw tight, but his words didn't settle me. Good wasn't the word. I was free, maybe, but free to what? I kept working, the Mustang's engine humming to life under my hands. It was a small win, one I could touch, unlike the mess I'd made of them. Nights were still hard. I'd sit on the couch, a whiskey in hand, the wedding photo gone from the mantel. I didn't miss Sarah, not the way I used to. I missed the man I'd been, trusting, steady, blind. Revenge had changed me, sharpened me, but it hadn't filled the hole. I'd torn them down, and it was right, but it wasn't enough. I stood, walked to the garage, and started on the Mustang again. The work was slow, the night long, but it was mine. I kept fixing what I could, piece by piece, until the road ahead made sense. The engine roared, alive again. But could I rebuild myself?